You're watching the legal breakdown. So, Glenn, we've got some bad news for Rudy Giuliani in the defamation case that was brought by the Georgia poll workers, Shay and Ruby Freeman. Can you speak on this latest update?
Yeah, so it looks like the judge has set, it's not exactly a trial, has set a hearing to see how much in money damages Rudy Giuliani is going to have to pay to the two Georgia election workers, Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, that he lied about and defamed. And the judge said that hearing on damages will kick off on December 11th. So not too far off now.
And so, what can we expect in this hearing? Is it going to operate like a regular trial, or is it just going to be much quicker given that they're just figuring out money damages?
Yeah, it'll be much quicker. I suspect you will have witnesses who will testify on behalf of Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, probably talking about the enormous emotional pain, suffering, the danger in which Rudy Giuliani put these two women. They were all but driven from their homes. You may remember their very dramatic testimony at the January 6th House Select Committee hearings. These women said, we can't even go to the grocery store anymore because we're afraid someone will call out our names and that will cause some Trump supporter to realize who we are. And Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani were sort of going on air and incessantly calling these women names, saying they were criminals. Rudy Giuliani even said, look at them, passing something back and forth like they're drug dealers, a not so thinly veiled sort of racist reference by Rudy Giuliani. So they will probably call some witnesses to talk about the damage they suffered, both personal and potentially financial, if this impacted their earning potential. They may also testify themselves about how this has impacted them. And then Rudy Giuliani can try to put on some evidence if he wants to try to, mitigate the damages and claim he should be forced to pay them less rather than more. I don't know exactly who is going to line up to come in and testify on behalf of Rudy Giuliani.
Right. Okay. Well, Giuliani had actually made another pretty massive misstep here because in this case, he basically admitted that he defamed these women. And a condition of this admission, according to Giuliani, is that he said it would only be admissible in that case and no other case. Glenn, is that how it works?
Brian, that's not how it works. When you make these kind of damning admissions in writing in a court filing that you lied about these women who were suing you for defamation and that you admitted to defaming these women, you don't get to set conditions and say, but nobody else can use my own admissions against me in any other setting. I don't know what rules Rudy Giuliani thinks he's playing by, but they're certainly not the rules of courts, civil or criminal. So, this was such a colossal misstep by Rudy Giuliani. I suspect I know why he was doing it, because he was trying to weasel his way out of having to provide discovery.
Right.
Because when you're sued by somebody, then the court orders discovery. You have to give over a whole bunch of stuff like written communications, emails, text messages, documents, bank records. And it looked like Rudy Giuliani, for whatever reason, thought that there was so much damaging material in there that he said, okay, you know what? I'm going to give up the ghost. I lied about them. I defamed them. So let's just argue about how much I should be forced to pay them to make them whole. And that's why he admitted to those things in court in writing. But here's the thing, Brian. He is also a RICO defendant down in Georgia, charged with what? Lying about the election in Georgia being fraudulent. So these admissions are going to be marquee, incriminating evidence that will be introduced against him when he goes to trial down in Georgia.
And so how specifically could this admission of defamation that he lied be used against him? How could it come back to bite him in that Fulton County case?
Well, because some of what he's indicted for is, for example, going before the Georgia state legislature and talking about how, these two election workers, Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman, were stuffing ballot boxes. They were rigging the election for Joe Biden. Now he has admitted those are lies. And so by extension, he lied to the Georgia state legislature in his determination to try to corruptly overturn the results of the Georgia state election and try to get Donald Trump installed for a second term. So this is directly incriminating evidence that will be introduced against him down in that trial.
Right, and also basically that just takes away his entire predicate for doing what he was doing. So he's going to basically try to defend himself by saying he believed these things to be true, but now when he's coming forward and basically admits that he knew he was lying, there's no justification for any of the actions that followed.
No, he's basically cut off his nose to spite his face. He tried to weasel out of having to give over discovery in a civil suit. And now it's going to come back to bite him because, those statements are going to be used against him as evidence in his criminal trial. I don't know who, if anybody, was advising Rudy Giuliani on the tactical approach to all this. But, boy, he was not getting his dollar's worth out of his attorney. That's for sure.
Well, we'll discuss how many dollars he has left in just a few moments. But first, is there any indication of what we're looking at with regard to damages in this trial set for December? Is there any guidelines here?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know what the Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman will be seeking by way of damages. There are two kinds of damages in a civil suit when you defame somebody. There are punitive damages. Those are damages, or that's an amount of money that a jury can award to punish the wrongdoer, to try to prevent him from ever doing anything like this again, and to serve as a general deterrent to try to discourage other people from defaming folks like Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman. And then there are what we call compensatory damages. That is the money you actually lost, perhaps in earnings, in revenue, in salary. If you are forced to stay in your home because you're being threatened by Trump supporters, because Trump and Rudy Giuliani are blaming you for trying to, steal an election from Donald Trump, you probably were not looking forward to getting out of the house and going to work every day. So there may be compensatory damages to make them whole for whatever money they lost or whatever future earning potential they may have had that may have been damaged by Rudy's defamation.
Now, just a few minutes ago, I alluded to Giuliani's less than ideal financial situation. So will Giuliani's public financial issues play into any judgment here? Like, if you spend months crying poor in the public, like Giuliani has done, will the judge take that into account, or is a money damage handed down completely devoid of what someone's financial circumstances are?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think there is some leeway for a respondent that's kind of a defendant in a civil suit to perhaps present some evidence about his assets. I think it actually varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But by and large, Rudy Giuliani is not going to be able to say, yes, I admitted that I lied about these women. Yes, I defamed them. Yes, they suffered damages as a result, but I plead poverty because I don't have any money left because I've spent all my money allegedly on lawyers who are defending me, in any number of cases. So I don't think that evidence will really see the light of day inside the courtroom, that evidence being, that he may not have the assets he used to have, but he may try to present a little bit of evidence about his assets and try to persuade a jury that they should therefore maybe impose a lesser financial judgment than a greater financial judgment. I don't think it's going to work. We did just hear reporting that, poor Rudy had to put his $6 million co-op or condo on the market in New York. So, I suspect there are some assets that will be available to satisfy whatever money judgment a jury imposes.
Well, this is getting into like law theory a little bit, but why should Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman not be compensated wholly because Rudy Giuliani didn't save up enough money while he was busy spreading lies and defaming these women? Like, why should they take the brunt of this and accept less money than they would have normally, all because Rudy Giuliani now doesn't have enough money because he's spending it all on lawyers?
Yeah, the answer is they shouldn't. And, there are times when somebody who is on the receiving end of a jury award, a money judgment that they have to pay, they don't have the money to pay it immediately. And a court will order them to pay it over time out of whatever income they might earn in the future. or they might put a lien against their assets to try to satisfy the money judgment. So there are some tools available for a court to try to make the plaintiffs whole once the jury, hands down a money award.
And we'll obviously stay on top of that as soon as we hear any news from that front. Again, we should be looking toward that hearing in December, but we'll have plenty more to talk about in the meantime. So if you want to stay on top of legal news as soon as it breaks, make sure to subscribe. The links are right here on the screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.